Kat, great to see you. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I appreciate that you're busy. I want to kick off by reflecting something back to you that we talked about last time. You said most recycling models don't work, which is, I mean, in one sense, I'm kind of horrified to hear that, really. Why do you say that, and why does it matter?
Yeah. So overall, I think we have gained awareness that plastic pollution is not good, but at the same time, we investigated the finer details of why recycling or centralized recycling is not working because right now we still export a lot of waste into other countries, and we also count incineration as recycling. So when you look at the actual recycling capacities have been going back. So in the UK, we had around 20 companies close or 20 recycling facility. But even across Europe, we've lost like 1 million tons of recycling capacity. And at the same time, when we look towards Southeast Asia or Asia, they need a lot more recycling
Mm,
capacity
mm.
because 80% of all the plastic waste that is being exported there then just ends up leaking into the oceans, and that's what
Yeah,
we really want to stop.
yeah,
So why are the larger facilities not working? For example, in Germany, Europe, and the UK, we're doing really well at recycling the PET bottles,
yeah,
but there are many different types of plastic. And the first problem is that each one of them has different properties. So when you actually want to make them back into a product, this is why the separation is so important. And in many households, we already separate the plastic from the glass or from the organic
yeah.
waste. But then the next step, which is the job of the recycling companies, is to separate all the different plastics from each other. So there's a second step here. And that second step has a few problems. Number one, currently, you have to buy one machine to separate, let's say, the cap of the bottle
Yeah,
from the bottle.
yeah.
But then you have more. We are focusing on six plastic types, but there are many more out there. And currently, what needs to happen is a facility would have to buy in multiple machines to separate more plastic types. That's of course very expensive, both as a capital investment, but also to keep it running. That's why many recyclers only focus on the like so-called low-hanging fruit, which will be the bottles,
Yeah.
because they're quite easy to identify. And then they don't invest into more machinery to tackle the other plastic types because they don't think it'll make enough
Okay.
profit and because it's too much of a challenge.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
second,
let
yeah,
me just ask you then. So what you're saying is there's absolutely loads of plastic waste, and it's a real pain to sort it out so that you can recycle it, and it's expensive to recycle.
yeah,
That's essentially what you're saying, isn't it?
yeah.
Yep. So okay, what are you going to do about it?
So what we are going to do about it, what we're thinking, we want to tackle two things at the same time. One, we want an easy and cost-effective way to increase recycling infrastructure,
Yeah.
both in Europe as an extension, so to speak, to existing facilities, but also for the Asian markets or developing countries as a simple way, instead of having to build a $20 million facility, we have invented a micro factory that can handle six types of plastic. And our technology fits into a 20-foot shipping container. And then that alone kind of paints the picture of, hey, we can deploy them locally as
Yeah.
satellites
Yeah.
that just start the recycling process. And we are also focusing on being very energy efficient because one thing I forgot to mention is many recyclers also closed because we had very high energy prices
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Let
a
me
big,
ask you.
big
Let me
drag.
ask you about the approach that you've taken. I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. Create small recycling facilities that you can deploy in lots of different circumstances. I mean, that's a really smart idea. What set you on this path? I mean, just give us a little bit. I mean, we'll talk a bit more about what you're going to do, but give us the background to why you ended up putting a recycling facility into a shipping container.
Yeah. So there is like two sides to the story. One, I was working for a venture capital firm in Hong Kong. And as most people, when you travel throughout Asia, they have a lot of islands. And the geography, you have many remote regions,
Mm,
more
mm,
difficult geography. And I was like, why is the waste? How do you get this waste that is maybe stranded up on a smaller island? How do you get that out? Right? So I saw, hey, we need a different approach to
mm.
large centralized facilities. And the second reason was I'm from Germany, Düsseldorf. I've been in the UK for 5 years, but back then I we were very good at separating all the waste. But then I found out that in my city, at least, everything was being put back together and then incinerated.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And I was
crazy,
like,
isn't
well, that's not ideal, is it? And then our engineer Marius then investigated why that happens, and we came to the solution that we need to have better methods of separating the plastic from one another.
it? Okay. And okay, so you've got this fantastic proposition. I mean, what's your plans now? And I mean, where are you going with all this?
Yeah. So we are an early stage company, pre-seed, but we've built three smaller scale units that actually can separate plastic, and we have tested two samples already, one from the UK and one from Kenya, where you have a massive landfill problem as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
The next step for us would be to implement it in a local facility and see how our technology can slot in like a less risky environment, because going straight to a beach is still a bit for further ahead for us. So first step will be a deployment in the UK. And in the very long term, how I would also, where I really want to get is we are partnered with the ocean cleanup, for example.
Okay.
Once we have commercialized the product, they currently collect 5 tons of plastic across per day across different locations. You deploy a unit there, and we actually turn this plastic waste back into a tradable commodity, and then we can jointly sell it back, and therefore increasing revenue for the NGO partners as well as for us. And lastly, there's a recent uh, progression in our company where we realized there's a process called pyrolysis where you turn waste plastic back into a synthetic recycled crude oil. That doesn't really work that well at the moment. But we figured out that by separating it more accurately, this next process of pyrolysis will be way more efficient, less energy intensive.
Okay. Okay.
So we kind of have a few different ways to tackle, but we will start with the industrial segments. So working with other recyclers and pyrolysis companies, and later down the line, we'll see what we can do with the NGOs.
Okay. And I mean, in terms of, let me just ask you about the practicalities of scaling something like this up. I mean, it sounds to me like you're going to need a lot of money. I mean, is that fair? Is it a really expensive thing to build, to develop in terms of the sorts of things you've described?
I think scaling it up will cost a lot more money, but what we've also focused on already to some extent is when we look at our parts and our suppliers, we try to make the part as few of the parts unique as possible. So we try
Okay.
to work with a lot of off the shelf, so
Okay.
you
So you keep the
can
cost down.
find a easier replacement. But yes, we will be looking to raise a larger seed round once we have done our first UK deployment, and then building a fleet, so to speak, of these units that can then go out into the world. Yeah, but you're absolutely right, and especially recently, the supply chain issues, even on our smaller lab scale, when we order something, takes a long
Yeah.
time to build. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that strikes me about what you're talking about is you're not just, I mean, what you're talking about is creating a circular economy for plastic, isn't it?
Yes, and also a fully circular economy in the sense that we work w with the people that collect the plastic or have the facilities, and then we can also jointly trade it back. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how you're going to go about doing that, how you're going to build that business. I mean, let me start off with how do you feel about being the CEO?
Pretty good, but I will say when we first started, I think you kind of grow into it every day, every month, every year, and your perspective on the business, but also on yourself has changed a lot because I had the idea. We started working on it during COVID in 2020, which is now a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
since then, back then, I didn't really envision to become CEO or anything. We just found something that we think was patentable, that was working well, and we just wanted to try and make a business out of it. But yeah, I've had to learn a lot, and now I feel very, very confident. And the good thing is, there are amazing people like you or other advisors that have been in your shoes, and they can actually advise you when you come across something that you haven't faced before.
Yeah. I mean, just pick up that point about things that you haven't faced before. I mean, have you had any particular surprises on that journey? Things that have really kind of caught you off guard?
Um, Not, yeah, to some extent, really caught off guard, or rather something that I hadn't had to deal with before. Is actually we are currently a team of 4 people. And at this stage, we're all co-founders, but everyone has their own working styles, communication
Mhm.
styles. And of course, when you have a friendship or a non-working relationship, these things, humans deal with them how we deal with them. But suddenly in the work setting, I needed to be way more observant and also learn how to manage even the work styles of people together to achieve a mutual goal. So that was something that I was surprised by how big the impact is.
Yeah, and it's also quite difficult, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not an easy task that. I mean, I think dealing with people is never easy. It's one of the lessons I've learned. And let me ask you about your values. I mean, how have your values influenced the way you've approached building the company?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I think my values are, especially at this early stage, it is one, a very uncertain. It is building a business or having an early stage startup. There can always be something that will not work. So we constantly have to be ready to deal with uncertainties. But one of my values is, I think, as a person in general, is just to be kind and understanding, but also this took me a while to learn as well. Go to your teammates and ask for help. If you don't know something, it's fine. You don't know it,
Mm.
but we sometimes still take longer to actually express that. Even if we know someone well, or sometimes even because we know someone well, we don't want to disappoint them, then we wait even longer, I think. So that's my number one value, is really trying to lead by example with being kind and understanding. And secondly, I actually really do want to build this so it can help or be something of use to the world. In the sense, when we look at the current, this is maybe a bit tricky, but when we look at the current state of things where with waste pickers and waste collectors, I've spoken to a company called Plastic Bank that where the waste collectors actually get insurance, stuff like that. If my technology at some point can go out there and actually increase their efforts of collection and therefore their remuneration, I think that would be a fantastic thing. I'm not trying to say we will not be commercial. We will definitely work with the bigger players and everything. But I think any technology should do something good. And at the end of the day, my other value is even if we should fail, we have built an IP, we have built a collection of understandings that maybe hopefully can help someone else to
Mm.
solve the problem. So this is what I'm telling myself because we all deal with the fear of failing.
Yeah.
But I think our work is still valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I like about entrepreneurs is that they're much better able to deal with failure than lots of other people. I mean, they admit their mistakes because if they don't admit their mistakes and fix them, they end up out of business. So, I mean, failure is a sort of an everyday part of the game, really. Let me just ask you about that, though. I mean, when I talk to entrepreneurs, most of them say to me that building a business is like riding a roller coaster. Good
Mm,
days, bad days, everything in
yeah.
between. I mean, is that your experience? And what is it that if you like gets you to bounce out of bed in the morning and get stuck in, that makes you want to ride that roller coaster? Because you could go and do lots of other things that are well paid and less stressful.
Yeah, I think I think first of all, to the first part, it is like a roller coaster, and it's also now that we've raised money and we have different challenges now, which is more the execution side, it's almost like seasons or phases that you constantly go through around in a loop. So it is still like a roller coaster. But I think for me, it's just almost subconscious commitment that I've just made. I don't even think about, oh, I have to do this. It's just embedded in my subconscious mind that, hey, I've committed to doing this, and now I really, really want to do it.
Yeah,
And then also super important, it may sound a bit obvious, but when you have a hard day, um, we forget to ta we tend to forget all the amazing things we have already achieved.
yeah, Yeah.
and remind each other in your team as well of what you have achieved when you together come together and something hasn't worked out. It sounds easy, but I think I also forget to think
Yeah.
about
I
it
mean, I
that
was
way.
about to, I mean, it's an
Yeah.
interesting point you just made. I mean, I was about to ask you, I mean, one of the things, but CEOs become very resilient because they get used to riding the roller coaster. But the other challenge is how you build resilience in your team. I know
Yeah.
you've only got a small team at the moment, but how do you think about, I mean, how do you help your teammates deal with, I mean, they don't necessarily ride the roller coaster quite the same way, but how do you help your workmates deal with
Yeah,
it?
this is actually a point that we already started a little bit. I think what has helped me is also being observant about people's reactions when something goes wrong, and each one of them will be different. But I
Mm,
think the first thing is talk through it, but very calmly. Take a step back, maybe be like, "Hey, why don't you look at this something else for a little bit?" Or just immediately jump on the phone and be like, "Hey, it's okay." And then remove yourself a little bit so that person has some time to breathe and to digest
mm,
in some cases. And then you sit down, you look at the problem together and you break it up and you say, hey, okay, what are the things we can change and what things can we absolutely not change right now? Because the ones we can't change, I don't want you to worry about it right now. We will revisit them later, but let's focus on the smaller things we can do.
yeah. I mean,
Yes, that's the general answer.
I was talking to somebody this morning who said to me that they write down on a bit of paper the things that they can control and the things that they can't control, and
Yeah.
they ignore the stuff they can't control, which I
Yeah.
thought was probably quite a sensible way of keeping on top of things.
I think it's having a bit of a stoic mindset can
Yeah,
definitely help you to not spiral. Just always trying to put things to perspective. When you're building, you're like in a tunnel, so to speak. But then when you have a problem, it's really important that you kind of become like an eagle that sits above and observes everything from above. And it's not when you get too stuck only in the tunnel of your problem, then normally things don't
yeah,
go too well.
yeah. And let me ask you about something that you probably haven't yet dealt with, but you might need to. So, I mean, I know your intention is to turn this into a global business. I mean, you're ambitious about, really having an impact on recycling, which is a good thing. I mean, I love to see people with a bit of ambition, and I think you've bitten off a decent sized piece of ambition there. Let me ask you about moving into a global market. I know you're not quite there yet, but one of the challenges you're going to need to deal with is that doing business in London, and you'll know this, is doing different from doing business in Hong Kong, which is different to doing business in the Philippines,
Yeah.
for example. I mean, what's your thinking about how you handle the fact that recycling, I mean, it's a hot topic politically in the UK, for example. I mean, the whole agenda around the environment is quite big here, but in lots of other parts of the world, maybe not so important. I mean, what's your take on that kind of globalization, localization thing?
Yeah. So I think in some ways I have already started to work on this to some extent because I'm well aware that things like awareness or importance of recycling can vary. And this is why I think it's very important in each country. You don't want to like just come in and be like, hey, here's a solution. We speak to multiple partners or customers that already have been in, let's say, Indonesia for 5 years. And even though we can't go to Indonesia yet, we start building the relationship, we start
Yeah,
building the data sharing. And when we get there, then it will also not be an imposition because these people have already worked there on the ground. They're either local or they have been there so long that they have a better understanding on where to start and what things to be mindful of. But one thing is definitely also we've just realized how tricky it can be, the import-export regulations.
yeah,
Every country has a different regulation. And I think it's sometimes also not too smart to try to be everywhere at once and maybe pick one other country first and do it step by step.
yeah,
And definitely, I think it's delusional to think you don't need local help on the ground. I think we definitely will need it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's as far as my thinking goes to
Yeah.
date.
I'm sure you're right about that, though. I mean, the thing about having local partners, I mean, a lot of people that build global businesses talk about the importance
Yeah.
of that. Let me ask you about what you've learned from the journey. I mean, you've been at this 4 or 5 years now. I mean, what would you say? Um, is the biggest mistake you've made so far? I mean, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest mistake. That's a very good question. I have probably a few more things I can say on this, but the first one that comes to mind. And I'm in a quite lucky position because I have someone on my team who has founded a company before.
Mhm.
So we were maybe quite close to making a mistake, but I was, and we turned the ship around. But I think even as founders, we always, in a way, not glorify, but we all looking for investment, right? So when someone indicates they may want to invest, we get really excited. But a big power of thing to learn is also to say no
Mhm.
if you think in the long term it's not a good match or it will impact the direction of the company too early. There will always be a point where someone or one of your investors will suggest to pivot or to change your customer segment or do things differently. But I think especially in a time when we're still building the product and the vision of it, it is good to have investors that match kind of like your goals
Mhm.
and don't tell you to like work with certain companies, for example, or force you to. So I think, yeah, learning to say no. And also one mistake, I think once I was writing a grant and I was not realistic for like that sounds silly, but being realistic, when you're too optimistic, then you sometimes lack the realism of really knowing how long a task will take, how long something can take. And then even if you finish at the end, you may not be successful. So actually good planning and good structure is, I think, even as a startup, when we're a bit more chaotic than a big corporate, that's okay. But actually more structure is needed sometimes.
Yeah. And let me ask you about the flip side to making mistakes. I mean, what are the things you most enjoy about building the business?
Yeah. Oh, what I most enjoy is when someone tells me, actually, we do need your product, or
Right.
there is an actual angle to just getting that external confirmation that we are building something that can be useful. I think that's really exciting. And I had something else to say, and I forgot it. It's okay. It's okay though. Yeah, no, so that's one of the things I enjoy the most. Um, and yeah, just seeing it grow every day. And even if things take time, getting a new sample tested, small successes, and being like, hey, we recently got a sample, like I said, from Kenya, and I was like, hey, this is important enough for someone to ship like 10 kilograms of plastic from a totally different country. And then I just got excited to see the plastic, and I was like, this is dirty plastic, but let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And there is something I think about the time these things take. So it's interesting you talked about even little steps are important because every entrepreneur that I've ever met would say we can't get stuff done fast enough. Everyone wants to do it faster than they can in reality. So your point about being realistic, I think, is
Yeah,
very well made. But difficult to judge actually. I mean, it's very difficult to judge what is doable. That's
yeah.
one of the big lessons I've learned. Let me.
Yeah, and hitting the sweet spot of like, hey, it's this testing cycle should take a bit longer because it's quite important that we iron out the failures or like the errors beforehand. But what is also too long, and how long can we wait before markets move, before a customer loses interest? But yeah, I have a great advisor who exited his company a while ago. And then when that happens, a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And he said, I worked for 15 years on this. It's never an overnight success.
That's
The
right.
success may arrive in one night, but it took me 15 years of daily work to actually get there. And when we hear these amazing stories without the context, we're almost like, oh, but how did this person do it? And why am I not there? And I think it's very important to remember that in most cases, it really does take time.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And let me ask you about the broader company. I mean, not just what you've learned, but in terms when you think about the business. I mean, what is it about the business that makes you most proud in terms of where you've got to now?
Yeah, I think what I would also say, one of the other learnings I've made in the beginning, it was Marius, our engineer, and I. And in the beginning, it's also very much about finding the right people to join you.
Yeah.
But I would almost say you built the company a little bit around the team and the people. Whereas now it really shifts. We build the company fully around the product. But in that early stage, finding these right people and bringing them together, I am very proud of that I was able to excite them enough or convince them enough to join us. And it's really amazing to see our CSO, Ines. She comes from a different scientific field, but she's applied her learnings to the separation of plastic now. And even in herself, it's so nice to see kind of the pivot in her brain and how it applies to the company now. I think actually I'm most proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's often I always think that the people are the biggest pain in the neck, but they're also the biggest thing if you get it right with the people. I mean, it just adds so much value, really. Great. That's where the magic comes from, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, if you were to go back to the beginning, if you were to start from scratch, what would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. Actually, knowing what I know now, I will say, and this is just an overall observation that I have made, in the UK, we're very strong with fintech investments, now AI investments, but there's a little bit of hesitancy towards hardware, at least in my experience. And our very first tickets actually came from American investors.
Right.
I would probably raise and start raising in America earlier. We may still go there. I don't want to set up a company there yet, but in the beginning, I didn't. A lot of people told me go to America, go there for a month, and just fundraise there. And I was like, no, we can do it here, and that's absolutely okay. I'm happy that we did, but I think for the future, this is maybe something we will have to do
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah, it's just about the risk appetite in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Germany is this is why I didn't this is why we didn't we developed the technology in Germany and we took it to the UK for a variety of reasons. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and lots of people say that raising in America is easier. They're more up for a bit of risk,
Yeah.
um, but it's not easy raising anywhere. I think,
No, no,
you know,
no, no, no. No, absolutely not. And what else would I do differently? Yeah, I think actually we are now fully in the product development cycle, but I actually think we should have started that a bit earlier.
why
Than
do you say that?
I say that because we should have known. So, for example, we are now hiring our first external person, and we're hiring an additional engineer. I think we should have done that earlier or found like more external engineering support because we should have known that things never go as planned and that you actually need more manpower and more engineering to build a hardware product because we are a hardware startup. So we should have had more engineers earlier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. And in terms of if you were to offer a piece of advice to a rookie CEO,
Yeah.
what would that one piece of advice be?
Ooh. Hmm. Allow me to think about that for a moment. One piece of advice, it's a bit difficult. No, there's one in terms of motivation. I think if that CEO found something that really excites them, yeah, find the people that also are excited about. No one is ever alone. There's always people that will support you. And secondly, what I think I did right get the validation from customers, even if the product's not ready. Don't be too perfectionist either. Just go out there, speak to people. I've gotten amazing introductions via random conversations, and this is why you said in the beginning, entrepreneurs love to talk about what they do, but
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons why opportunities come to you. So validate it, and that validation, even if your product's not ready, will help you fundraise, will do everything. And if you have software, even better, you can just show the demos. But
Yeah,
yeah, that would be
good
my two.
advice, I think. Good advice. Start early. Don't have to be, doesn't have to be. I mean, I
No,
always think if your product, if you're not embarrassed by your initial, your MVP, you've waited too late, really. But let me ask you about just one final question, really.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, you're at a really critical point now. What it excites you about the next bit of the journey that you're about to go on?
Yeah, I'm really excited to hopefully have it deployed in the UK, maybe late summer somewhere, and just see it in the real world. It's because first you go from vision, then you have the lab prototype, and that will make it feel even more real in a sense.
Mm.
Even though it will also probably throw up lots of new problems. But yeah, just seeing that it's real and working, and then you can strategize again where to take it after. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exciting though, very exciting. Kat, thank you for making a bit of time. I mean, what a great thing to be working on. I mean, having travelled in places like Asia, and you go to the beach and it's covered in plastic, and you think, I mean, it's really good that you're developing technologies that will help address some of those problems and the plastic in the ocean and stuff. So, I mean, good luck going forward. It's certainly a really worthwhile cause, and like I said, I mean, pretty exciting times, really.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time too and for the questions. I've quite enjoyed that.
Lovely. See you soon, Kat. Cheers. Bye
See
bye.
you.